One Boston Marathon bombing suspect dead and another being hunted. Locally striking dock workers make their presence felt at Cheung Kong Center. And the search for answers continues in the bird flu outbreak.
Good evening. One of the two suspects in the Boston Marathon bombing is dead, and a massive manhunt is underway for the other. Police are now engaged in a house-to-house search for the second suspect after a bloody night of shooting and explosions in the city's streets. Millions of people throughout several suburbs of Boston are on complete lockdown as mass transit and businesses were told to shut down to ensure public safety. Police haven't officially released the identities of the suspects, but their names have been widely spread on social media. Officials are still referring to them as Suspect Black Hat and Suspect White Hat. Black Hat is dead and White Hat is still on the run. The drama began with the murder of a Massachusetts Institute of Technology police officer. He was shot multiple times after investigating what's being described as a disturbance on campus. Police officials said two men suspected of killing the officer fled after stealing a car at gunpoint. They later released the driver unharmed. Authorities say the suspects threw explosives from the car as police followed it, heading to the Boston suburb of Watertown. There were reports of multiple explosions and exchanges of gunfire. One of the suspects was critically injured in the exchange and later died while the other escaped.
We believe this to be a terrorist. We believe this to be a man who's come here to kill people. We need to get him in custody.
A doctor at the hospital where the suspect was treated reported he suffered multiple injuries.
Multiple injuries. Probably, we believe, a combination of blasts, potentially gunshot wounds.
How many gunshot wounds?
Unable to count.
Earlier yesterday, the FBI released photos and video of two suspects linked to the Boston Marathon bombing and asked for the public's help in identifying the men. FBI agent Richard Deloriers said the images were from surveillance cameras near the explosion sites shortly before Monday's blasts.
Somebody out there knows these individuals as friends, neighbors, co-workers, or family members of the suspects. Though it may be difficult, the nation is counting on those with information to come forward and provide it to us.
On the surveillance footage, the men were seen walking together in the crowd. The one wearing the white cap was also seen setting down a backpack at one blast site near the finish line. Generally, law enforcement agencies are reluctant to release photos of suspects, and they do so only as a last resort when they need the public's help. Releasing photos can tip off a suspect and deny police the element of surprise. But it can also lead to valuable information regarding the identity of the suspects. It's unclear if the reported disturbance at the university was linked to the FBI disclosure of the images.
And here in Hong Kong, striking dock workers from the Kwai Chung container terminal are rallying in Central tonight in a bid to put even more pressure on the port operator to meet their demands for better pay and working conditions. The focus of their action at Cheung Kong Center and Hong Kong's richest man, Li Ka-shing, whose empire runs the port. To tell us more, we go live now to Stephanie Wong, who joins us on the phone. Stephanie, what's happening out there?
Well, Diane, despite the rain outside, the rally itself just started about half an hour ago, and all around me, though you might not be able to see them, are striking dock workers and their supporters wearing red strips of cloth to show solidarity. Now, the idea tonight is that they will surround Cheung Kong Center in an effort to call for a higher pay rise. And in terms of activities for tonight, members of the unions involved will speak on stage, followed by different supporting organizations as well. And the dock workers say they're not giving up until they get what they want. Day 23 of the strike, and dock workers held the fort outside Cheung Kong Center in Central. They are standing firm in their demand for dialogue with port operator Hong Kong International Terminals, which is part of tycoon Li Ka-shing's business empire.
We believe that we stay here will put more pressure to Li Ka-shing and Victor Li. We want that in the future days, HRD management will think more seriously why dock workers stay here.
In the afternoon, the strike fund was again open to the dockers. This is the 6th time that money is being handed out to striking dock workers to help tide them over. Each person gets $1,500. Meanwhile, some staff members of contractor Global Stevedoring Service, which announced yesterday it would close down its business, said they'd already received offers from other firms, including Lem Wing Transportation and Pui Ki Stevedore Company. The two companies, which have previously refused to take part in the labor talks, are promising higher wages. But one worker says the pay increase being offered doesn't get to the heart of the problem. If we agree and go back to work, it'll be no different from life before the strike, Ah Hong said. Global Stevedoring Service stated yesterday that with 75% of its staff on strike, it had no choice but to fold at the end of June. Although the contractors are directly responsible for the workers' pay, unionist Lee Cheuk-yen said it's up to HIT, a subsidiary of Hutchison Whampoa, to take responsibility.
It's Hutchison that should pay. They are the one that really profit from the whole business. So we are asking for Hutchison to foot the bill, but negotiation can go on with the subcontractor. Our position is very clear. We want any subcontractor to wanting to hire our workers, our strikers, to negotiate with the union for a wage level, a decent wage and decent working condition.
Now, the rally here has expanded to include a vehicle lane outside Cheuk Hong Center, and it will end later tonight, but the unions say they plan on continuing on camping out here. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was Stephanie Wong reporting live from Cheuk Hong Center. And to other news now, tougher regulations governing the sale of new homes are due to come into effect on the 29th of this month. Officials say they're fully geared up in their campaign to protect the interests of home buyers. The government is calling it a new era and a new milestone over the sale of new homes.
There will be more transparent information. There will be fairer transactions. There will be greater protections to consumers. And also, vendors will enjoy a level playing field.
Property developers have long been criticised for using deceptive means to boost the appeal of the flats for sale, for example, by including common areas such as lift lobbies into each unit's floor area. Under the Residential Properties First-Hand Sales Ordinance, developers have stricter guidelines to follow, covering a range of aspects such as show flats, advertising and transactions. For example, they'll have to make sales brochures available to the public 7 days before the flats are to be put on sale, and the price list and sales arrangements 3 days in advance. The authority has set up an electronic platform for developers to upload all that information for prospective buyers' reference, and said about 60 new developments have already set up an account for that purpose. Fung said his team has been working hard to make sure the trade understands what is required of them and that they comply. The maximum penalty for breaching the law is a fine of $5 million and 7 years in jail.
The World Health Organization says it's still too early to say whether the latest strain of bird flu is spreading among humans. Still, WHO officials admit many patients on the mainland had no prior contact with poultry before getting sick. The H7N9 outbreak has so far claimed 17 lives across the border. Tony Sabine reports.
The World Health Organization and mainland authorities are scrambling to find out how humans are getting infected with the H7N9 strain of avian flu. Still, the WHO stopped short of saying the virus had mutated, making human-to-human transmission possible.
It really would require now a separate mutation from the one we've seen, because there isn't any evidence of that happening so far.
Another point is that there is no major outbreak of flu among poultry, unlike previous situations.
At this point, this is a little bit unusual in that we haven't been finding sick poultry effectively. So that's unlike some previous investigations where this was a serious infection among the poultry population as well.
With scores now infected across the mainland, experts are puzzled over why many have become sick despite having no exposure to poultry.
As the investigation gets deeper, we have found more. I think it's now more than half where there's a known contact with poultry. So in any investigation, we don't really have full knowledge and information about contacts. So that's what makes it a bit difficult right now to definitively rule in or certainly to rule out chickens.
An international team of experts will visit live poultry markets and hospitals in Beijing and Shanghai as part of the investigation. Mainland authorities have culled thousands of birds and shut down some live poultry markets to stop the spread of the virus. But the closure of markets and the culling of birds has affected local farmers. Today, a top agricultural official said the government should support poultry farms that are up to quarantine standards to prevent them from being financially devastated by the H7N9 epidemic. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
And when we come back, an alleged scam involving prison visits. Meet some of the world's most influential people. And is their life far away on faraway planets?